right now on Chronicle in high definition.
New condos, new art galleries, a new martini bar as well.
We really wanted to try to bring a bit of Las Vegas to central Massachusetts.
Signs of life in a bruised and battered old mill city. She's young and inexperienced, but the new mayor dreams big. Lisa Wong wants to resurrect the city's image.
Oh, you're from Fitchburg, ugh.
With a surprising rescue plan.
If she was able to figure out how to do this and actually pull it off, she should be president.
The future for Fitchburg, next on Chronicle.
I think we're at one of the brightest points in the history of Fitchburg.
A renewed sense of hope, a fierce determination to fight against the odds flows through this community of 40,000. Fitchburg, Massachusetts, an industrial city just 50 miles west of Boston.
I think it's like a refusal to be negative anymore.
Fitchburg State senior Bria Sullivan has lived in Fitchburg her entire life, and she's had to stand up for her city through it all.
I wait tables, so people say, oh, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Fitchburg. I have to say it with a different kind of inflection to make them understand that I'm damn proud of where I'm from. And so I have to say, I'm from Fitchburg, and I go to Fitchburg State, and I love it. And then they're like, oh, great, because then they're not going to say, oh, you're from Fitchburg, ugh.
It's a defense built out of decades of civic shame, deteriorating homes, declining industry, and a demoralizing lack of community pride.
We're so fed up with being looked at as like the dirty burg and the ghetto and everything.
With the city facing financial collapse, the residents of Fitchburg decided to fight for their future, casting a pivotal ballot for mayor.
Out with the old and with the new.
Their vote launched a sea change in City Hall, one that could chart a new course for this drowning city many had left for dead.
You know, there is a very bright future for this city, and there's 100 things that need to be done.
Lisa Wong, 5'2", daughter of Chinese immigrants, just 28 years old.
I wasn't hearing words like investment and growth and attracting businesses and having long-term plans and forming a vision.
A political novice, Wong faced off against an established city councilman, twice her age.
Thank you for sharing this historic day with me.
She won by a landslide.
I wanted to be in a position where I could sell and lead the city so that everybody sees the opportunities that I see here.
And Wong has a wide-ranging plan to transform Fitchburg into a regional tourist and economic hub with kayaking courses along the Nashua River, an indoor water park at a local hotel, faster service on the Fitchburg commuter line, and hiking trails along the area's hilly terrain.
Well, I have a new motto. I call it Fit and Fun in Fitchburg. It really is a campaign to change our perception.
It just can't be something where the city decides to forget about its history and think somehow they can make this giant leap forward.
Professor Robert Forant at UMass Lowell studies former mill cities like Fitchburg.
I do think that Fitchburg, the mayor and what they're trying to do, has the possibility. Unfortunately, she comes in at a point historically where our economy is not doing very well.
And Fitchburg has been hit particularly hard. Boarded up businesses, abandoned mills, and a housing crisis with high levels of lead paint and rising rates of foreclosure.
In the Elm Street neighborhood, we counted up in a very small area, 50 homes that were subject to foreclosure.
Just minutes from City Hall, the Elm Street neighborhood represents one of Wong's biggest challenges. Roughly 10 blocks of densely packed tenements, a dismal reminder of Fitchburg's fading working class.
How you doing, sir? How you doing, sir? You got a headlight out, bro.
Fitchburg Police Sergeant Ernie Martineau grew up on Elm Street and watched as jobs left and crime slowly took hold.
We have a combination of everything between drug activity, prostitution, shootings. You can see how we're liked in the neighborhood with the writing on the wall right there.
But even here in the grim reality of Elm Street, a glimmer of light. At the Elm Street Congregational Church, Pastor Stephen Mayo and community activist Jason Guevara came together to reach out to the children of Elm Street.
And one of the things that had always kind of stood out to us was the needs of the kids who were out.
So they opened up the church to the community's children, offering a safe haven, regardless of race or religion.
They want to be here. They want to be in relationship. They want people who care for them.
It's part of Mayor Wong's vision to bring this once vibrant mill city back, brick by brick.
It's going to be a long time before we can overcome our reputation, but we need to start doing that by lowering some of the statistics.
And for the city of Fitchburg, the stakes are high.
How do we get people back to work? How do we hold on to our young people? How do we actually make people see that there's a future in the city? If she was able to figure out how to do this and actually pull it off, she should be president.
Well, she certainly has a nice positive attitude, but she already has her work cut out for her.
Well, she's inherited some of these problems. Already she's had to report a $5 million budget deficit for the city. That's a huge problem. To combat that, she's instituted a hiring freeze, and there could very well be additional cutbacks, layoffs among police, fire, teachers, etc. So she's starting in a bit of a hole.
Well, what does Fitchburg have that Boston doesn't?
Well, we can think about bargain prices from the ground floor up. We have more on that in just 70 seconds.
Up next,
who's the nut in Fitchburg salvaging, beams and bricks?
That would be one Robert Anson, a man who believes in second chances. Along the Nashua River lie the remnants of Fitchburg's past and reminders of its potential.
The mill activity in the city of Fitchburg generated millions and millions of dollars that supported every facet of life in the city.
Working class communities blossomed here in what was once a Massachusetts manufacturing giant.
The mills were where it was at. People from outside of this area were all employed here.
Restaurant owner and Fitchburg native David Saluza.
It was a very vital city. And people came to Fitchburg if you came to central Massachusetts.
But the massive mills that powered generations to unparalleled prosperity grew cold. Industry in Fitchburg and similar Massachusetts mill cities collapsed.
And here you can see, this is an enormous building. It's both a challenge and it's an opportunity. I love these old sawtooths.
Mayor Wong has a blueprint to bring Fitchburg's millions of square feet of mill space into the modern age.
We're seeing some of the more local developers who are saying, you know what, there is opportunity here.
Douglas fir was used.
Like Fitchburg-born businessman Robert Anson.
I can tell you that it wasn't uncommon for people to consider me less than mainstream 10 years ago. Who's the nut in Fitchburg salvaging, beams and bricks?
When his family's shoe factory shut its doors, Anson was left with an empty mill and a full host of possibilities.
For me, there's no such thing as an obsolete building. I just never was comfortable with the notion that just because it was built for one thing eliminates the ability to do anything else in it.
So Anson converted his mill into the Mass Innovation Center, a state-of-the-art multi-use complex, complete with commercial office space, senior housing, and a public charter school.
Do you remember how many goals you had?
I'm very, very proud to see kids learning in a space where I made shoes, and people said it couldn't be done. Well, it is being done, and it's being done in Fitchburg, Massachusetts.
Anson's mill is built for the new millennium, where industrial age utility meets high-tech design, and the pollution of the past gives way to an eco-friendly future.
We built the largest private solar facility in New England. We're producing roughly 140 kilowatts of power, which is roughly the equivalent of 60 homes.
Anson also taps into geothermal technology, using the Earth's energy for heating and cooling.
By creating a place where we're using renewable energy, we're creating a center that costs less to rent space in or to have an apartment in. It's really unlimited what you can do with buildings that were built to last 1,000 years.
Across town at the former General Electric plant, there's Putnam Place, a suburban-style office park, home to startups like MZeal Communications.
When we designed the space, we didn't want it to look like a mill.
Russell Riven is MZeal's program manager.
Any space can be made into a high-tech friendly space.
This complex is custom designed to compete with the 128 belt, complete with information age amenities and room to expand.
We want them to come in here and say, yeah, this is the same as if I was in an office park in Boston.
You don't have to be on 128. You can really have it all. You can have the affordable space, you can have the quality of life, and you can have the access to the workforce that you need.
By weaving old and new, these once mighty mills are getting a second lease on life. And the hope is, so is Fitchburg.
For us to be able to bring industry into Fitchburg is kind of the last piece to make this a wonderful rebirth of the city.
And we want to know what you think of Fitchburg's chances. Can the city turn itself around? Join our discussion on our webpage on thebostonchannel.com.
Also, you can start the evening with a martini, browse the galleries, then take in a play. That's right, it's Fitchburg After Dark, right after this break.
Up next, who's moving to Fitchburg?
We have beautiful housing and lofts on these historic buildings that are going for a fraction of the price that they would in Boston. If you think of the great places like Mass Ave and Newbury Street, you know, this is actually what I think about the future of Fitchburg and the future of its Main Street.
Mile-long Main Street is Fitchburg's commercial center. Once bustling with retail, this stretch has long been littered with lost opportunities. Until now.
We have beautiful housing and lofts on these historic buildings that are going for a fraction of the price that they would in Boston.
People said you're crazy to move to downtown Fitchburg.
When Fitchburg State professor Daniel Sairfield relocated from Ohio, he found his dream home downtown on Main Street.
I just didn't understand what was wrong with it. When we looked around, when we walked around the neighborhood, it just seemed to me like no one was giving it a chance.
So Sairfield bought an apartment in the Johnsonia, a former five-star hotel converted into luxury condos.
It's a type of building that when you walk into, you say, wow.
Matt Straight and his family own the Johnsonia, and so far they've spent $3 million restoring this historic hotel to its former glory.
It was built over 110 years ago, so when they built it right.
The original oak and lead glass windows are still intact. The wood floors and high ceilings, this one part of the hotel's ballroom, have been restored. Then there are all the modern amenities they've added.
If you walk in the Johnsonia building and you see all the money we have spent, it only tells you that we believe in the future of Fitchburg.
I always say to the students and parents, let me get you to Fitchburg. Let me show you what Fitchburg has to offer, and then you'll stay.
I live in an apartment on Pearl Street, and so many people told me not to do it because they were like, you're going to get shot.
We gathered 9 students here at Fitchburg State College to tell us what they think of the city, which many of their peers call the Dirty Burg.
Are there town gown issues between the campus and the surrounding community?
There's always a little air of difference between the local community and the college students because we have a lower economic bracket right off campus, but you realize it's not anywhere near as bad as everyone makes it out to be.
People kept going up to my parents like, how can you let her go to Fitchburg? But after 4 years, I've really learned to love Fitchburg. If you really do just walk downtown, you will find that there are some things that you would never expect.
Downtown is much improved than it was just within a few years.
Recent police statistics are showing signs of progress, but with crime here historically higher than the state average, an unshakable stigma remains. Despite naysayers, Amy Newberg opened her Main Street store in 2004, back when other downtown businesses had boarded up.
Fitchburg has these fabulous old bones, but we don't want to recreate what it used to be. We want to create something new and exciting.
Newberg's shop, Design at 639, specializes in rehabbed furniture. In pieces that had been cast aside, Newburgh finds potential.
I did have a lot of people asking me why here, why Main Street, and was I crazy? And no, I'm not crazy, I'm just the first.
The outer-towners, they might look at me a little strange and say, Fitchburg, huh?
2 doors down, another artistic renegade, Anne Giancola, who opened her studio just this month.
Being on Main Street where a lot of people come by was going to be really good exposure for me.
Giancola sees Main Street as a cultural destination with the historic Fitchburg Art Museum and Stratton Playhouse just blocks away.
A lot of people felt that this business was doomed to fail right from the beginning idea.
Perhaps the most audacious experiment on Main Street is this sophisticated martini and wine bar, D'Astare.
It's actually Italian for awakening. And we really felt that D'Astare would also be the awakening of downtown Main Street in Fitchburg.
Business partners Christopher Iashua and Lance Delagono opened D'Astare in a downtown office building that stood vacant for more than 30 years.
We really wanted to try to bring a bit of Las Vegas to central Massachusetts.
With its daring decor and ambitious drink menu, D'Astare has attracted an upscale crowd to downtown Fitchburg.
We believe that the renaissance that we know is coming has begun, and we're hoping that in just a small degree we've lent a hand to that.
But back at Fitchburg State, a reminder of just how much work the city still has ahead.
So I'm curious, just by a show of hands, how many of you actually think you would stay and live in Fitchburg when you graduate?
Only 3 tentatively say they might stay. Among those considering leaving, Fitchburg native and its staunchest supporter, Bria Sullivan.
I'll go away for like another 10 years or something, come back and see it booming, is my expectation.
The lack of opportunity here for these students,
I'm shooting for the stars,
is something they speak of.
I don't feel that there's enough in my field in Fitchburg.
Time and again.
There's really no jobs around here.
But for newcomer Daniel Sairfield, there's already reason to believe in the future of Fitchburg.
In the period of time that we've lived here, which is less than a year, that we have seen lots of exciting changes. It's a place that is poised to make a surge.
Well, some of the renovations in the housing stock are really exciting.
The Johnsonia, which we saw at the beginning of that piece, the renovations there are fabulous, and you're looking at a 2-bedroom condo there for $200,000. I mean, you can't touch anything like that in the Boston area. Even single-family homes, 3 bedrooms, you know, $200,000, $250,000, that's it. So the housing prices, well, they're low everywhere, obviously, they're being depressed, but some great deals out there.
It's just about 40 miles from Route 128 to Fitchburg. Notes from a Fitchburg native, our own Mike Barnacle, right after this.
Well, for a first-person account of Fitchburg's better days, we didn't have to go very far.
Our search began and ended right in the Chronicle office. Mike Barnacle explains.
Let me tell you about Fitchburg. I'm kind of an expert on the town. I grew up there. My mother lived there until she was 88. We lived, all of us, my brothers, my parents, grandmother and aunt, right downtown. Easy walking distance to school, church, playgrounds, and the Morin Square Diner. It was a great place filled with a museum of memories, nearly all of them happy. But something happened to Fitchburg, something that has happened to a lot of old factory towns in New England. The mills went south, the paper plants went overseas, General Electric closed its doors, jobs left and never came back, the poor arrived, the young decided to go down Route 2 and not look over their shoulder. A tired town grew even more weary and broken from economic reality and government indifference. After you hit Fitchburg on the highway, you drive past Gardner, Athol, Winchendon. It resembles Appalachia, once thriving places where Main Street looks like a ghost town. It's nice that Fitchburg has a mayor young enough to be optimistic, energetic enough to try to turn things around. Its history is kind of unique. When I was a kid, it was an ethnic bazaar. Italians, Irish, Greek, French-Canadian, Finns, and black families posted at Fort Devens, and everyone got along. Across the last couple decades, it's been stalked by crime, unemployment, and the burden of carrying the cost of a new wave of immigration. I go there now to visit the cemetery where my parents are buried, and I think about what a great place it once was and what a great life that town helped give me. I grew up there, and I'm glad I did, but nostalgia doesn't pay the rent or buy the groceries. Fitchburg needs help, and it's no consolation, but it isn't the only place in Massachusetts that does.
Don't forget to go to our website to let us know if you think Fitchburg can be turned around.
And that is Chronicle for tonight. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm Anthony Everett.
I'm Mary Richardson. Good night.
Good night.